Okay, we have a bit of a living legend on the hotline right now. Coming up in about 2 weeks is UFC 130, and this guy we're talking to right now was the winner of UFC 1. Royce Gracie joins the show. Royce, how are you, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
An old school vet. Good to have you on.
So you're on to promote the new DVD, Ultimate Royce Gracie. Tell us all about it. What can buyers expect when they pick it up?
Man, that's the history, how the whole thing started.
Let me ask you this.
Most of my fights, all my fights are in there from the beginning of the UFC. So
Now, Royce, in the beginning of the UFC, it was completely different than from what people would expect from a pay-per-view nowadays, obviously. You know, I know that you personally, you had compiled like 11 submissions in like the first 4 UFCs, and people don't fight more than one person now. You know, just talk about those early days and what it was like to have to, you know, make these crazy fights and just, you know, just have all these insane matchups just to sort of get people interested.
from the beginning, it was more like a quest for my family. So there was a style against a style, and there was no rules. I mean, literally, no rules. The only thing not allowed.
No eye gouging. I think that was the one rule.
That's it. And there was no time limit, no weight division, and the first few UFCs, the first I think 5 or 6 UFCs, it was tournament style. So the first 4 was like 3 fights in one night. The second UFC actually was 4 fights in one night. It was a 16-man tournament.
Jesus.
Now you wanted to prove that, you know, just for your family's sake, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, with the manipulation of the body, you know, it can match up to anybody, no matter how big and large. And you were widely successful about that. Talk about like what that meant for your family, and then just for mixed martial arts in general to be able to just showcase Jiu-Jitsu like that.
People in the beginning thought that, well, the Gracies are arrogant. You're just beating up people. No, it was different. It was like in order for me to, I had to prove it to myself that the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu works against the other styles. So the only way to find that out, to prove it, is to get in the cage, in the ring, and fight the other styles with no rules, no time limit, no weight division. So it was like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is actually a self-defense style. It's not an offense. We don't. I mean, the punching that we do is more to maneuver the person from point A to point B, but it's more of a submissions. So everybody in the beginning actually would love to fight me because I would not hurt them. I catch them in a submission, they quit, okay, they get up, they walk out clean. Actually, can I do it again?
Now, you know, UFC 1 was in 1993. You know, and like we said before, there was basically no rules. 2 rules: no eye gouging, no biting. What kind of fighting did you do before UFC 1? I mean, how did you bring yourself to, you know, have enough courage to be locked into a cage with another man with no rules and only one man leaves the cage?
I never had a fight in the streets. So, I mean, in the school, in the academy, I had some students who come in and brought a friend that's a black belt in another style. My friend doesn't believe that you can take him down. Let's do it. But there was not even, I mean, it was a fight, but very much under control because we would never hurt the guys that came in. Because on the end, after we submit them, they become students. So they become students. So we kind of, okay, I'm not going to elbow across his face and cut his face open, bleed all. No, there's none of that. So, and training, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gave me so much confidence that, hey, let's get in the cage. And actually, my family, we kind of can't wait to get in. It's like, man, can I have my turn? There's so many of us.
In the beginning of the UFC, and this is my last question, perhaps Othello has 1 or 2 more, but in the beginning it was promoted as almost a blood sport because it was so different from anything that anybody had ever seen, you know, so different from boxing. so different from anything else that they had to sort of go outside the lines to just grab people's attention. And it was promoted as a blood sport. And now, years later, they're still sort of trying to shed that moniker. And it's not that at all, obviously. But, it is something that is controlled within the cage. There are referees, Talk about what it was like in those early years, having to battle the government just to get licensed, just to fight in different states, and how much Dana White meant to that fight as he came along later.
On the beginning, there was actually just about 2 or 3 states that were allowed to have this kind of event because the states didn't have boxing commission. On the states that had boxing commission, there was no way the show could happen. It was a question of educating the crowd. So the fighters, they're professional athletes, they train for this, they're martial artists, they know what they're doing. There's a referee that can stop the fight. There's a doctor can come in and step in and stop the fight at any minute. The cornerman can throw the towel and stop the fight. The fighters can quit anytime they want to. So it is under control. It was advertised as a brutal blood sport, but it had to be done that way.
Right.
All the attention to be able to educate the crowd. Dana White now turned that whole thing into a job. Now people get up in the morning and they go train like they're going to go to work.
Yeah.
I talk to young athletes over here, young kids. They're like, man, I get up every day and I go train. I ask, do you have a fight? No, I don't have a fight set up. I'm waiting. I'm on call. It's like, man. So what Dana White did, he transformed not just from a martial art, from a quest that my family started, into a job. He created a job for these people. So people, young kids get up in the morning, it's like, man, one day I want to become a UFC fighter.
Speaking of being on call, I saw recently, a couple days ago, there was an interview where you said that you are now on the active roster under the UFC. Is that correct?
Yes, I saw that too.
What's going on? Like, has nobody talked to you at all and said, hey, we're actually going to make you active right now?
Not yet. Not yet. We're seeing. We're waiting.
Okay. I mean,
call.
Right.
Right now, let's say I'm just keeping the sword sharp and clean.
Okay. Well, I mean, UFC 134 Rio is I think in August. How big is that? I mean, obviously it's got to be huge in Brazil.
That Brazil is where the whole thing started with my father.
Right.
So with my family. So this is the first time. I mean, they did one time a UFC over there, and this is the first time back. I think it's like 12 years or something like this. That's the first time back. So it's a big deal for us.
How often? You live in California, right?
Correct.
How often do you go back to Brazil?
Once a year. Once a year I go back.
Who is the most famous fighter in Brazil? Who walks around like they are the King S in Brazil? Anderson Silva?
My father is
Wow.
the one. He passed away, but he's the one that was doing this whole thing 7 years ago.
His legend still lives.
It still lives, man.
Okay, but when you walk around, I mean, everybody knows who your dad is. Everybody knows who you are. Are you like Brad Pitt in Brazil?
I don't know. I'm very discreet, man. I walk by, people don't even notice me.
Well, at least down in Brazil, they know that your name is pronounced Royce and not Royce, like we think here in the U.S.
Right. Correct.
Do you get is it strange for you if you ever see a Rolls Royce walk down or drive down in Brazil and then not really know what to call it?
They call it different. They call Rolls Royce.
That's funny.
Royce,
so funny.
there are some really intense champions in the UFC right now. We got GSP, Anderson Silva, John Jones. I wanted to ask you, who do you think of those three guys? Who do you think is going to lose their belt first?
It's hard to say. It's a game of strategy. It's not two tough guys walking the ring. There's not tough guys anymore. They're tough, don't take me wrong, but it's a strategy game. And the guys on the top, they know how to use strategy. So what's the strategy? Well, you ask that to a fighter, some guys they answer like this: Well, a strategy is I'm going to walk in, I'm going to throw a 1-2 combination punch, I'm going to take my opponent down, I'm going to mount on him, I'm going to throw a couple elbows, he's going to turn around, and I'm going to go for the choke. No, that's not a strategy. That's a wish. I wish the fight goes that way.
Yeah.
Strategy is figuring out what your opponent's going to do, take him out of his game, and win the fight. Either by submission, by knockout, by points, but you win clean. It's like, it's not just come in and duking it out. I'm going to be a tough guy and duke it out. Let's see who's tougher to win. No, those days are over.
Royce, do you talk to any fighters that you've fought in the past, like perhaps Ken Shamrock?
Nope.
Not at all.
No contact whatsoever. You guys like don't call each other up on the cell phone and say, "Yo, hey Ken, hey Royce, how you doing, man?"
No.
That sounds to me a lot like something that, like a lack of communication, like between two guys that perhaps are about to fight.
It's a Lee Joe phrase, man. No communication.
All right, Royce, well, we know you got to go. Thanks so much for the time, man. It's an honor to talk to you, really.
Thank you.
Last question. Actually, it's not even a question. Just
statement.
Cough if we're going to see you fight Ken Shamrock in August.
I don't think that would happen because it's the boxing commission today, the way the show happens, you have to fight in a weight division.
Oh, so you guys are different weight classes.
178, 180, and Ken Shamrock is about 220, 230. I don't think that would happen.
Royce, wouldn't it be awkward if you just happen to have a cold right now and you accidentally cough? Like, wouldn't that be that'd be weird? Like, you know, and then all of the internet sites get a hold of it.
That's funny. Okay, well, Royce Gracie, the DVD is Ultimate Royce Gracie. Again, thanks so much for the time, and it was awesome to talk to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Have a good one. Now, you said that you, like, because you don't really follow the sport as much as I do, but you said that, you know, you were familiar with him and you had actually, like, read up on his career in the past, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that because I had read a book on Pat Miletich called Blood in the Cage.
Okay.
And that went into the backstory of the Gracie family, a lot of that backstory, and you know how they came to sort of create Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then further elaborated on the fact that how Royce basically brought that to the UFC and into the United States and started spreading his gyms around the country, and that's a big part of why the UFC and why mixed martial arts is so big around the world now.
The guy is, like I said, a living legend. I mean, legend. I mean, not very many people who follow the UFC are really, you know, super into it and the history of it. But he's sort of like the, I don't know, the Reverend Run.
Well, he's like the Babe Ruth of mixed martial arts, but he just happens to be alive.
Like I said, you're right. Like I said, UFC 1.
And he's not fat.
It's like an 8-man tournament.
Yeah.
Like fighting 3 dudes in one night.
It was like David versus Goliath matchups.
Insanity.
I mean, that's what the style was. It was let me put this giant fat Asian guy versus this little Brazilian guy and see who comes out on top, because they literally took mixed martial arts to the fullest extent of the words.
What's crazy to see is if you watch those old videos and if you look it up, I think there are they had less than 3,000 people at UFC 1.
Yeah.
And UFC 129 was just in like a baseball arena in Toronto. Like,
it's unreal.
It's insane how it's just, you know, gotten so much bigger than they ever expected.
And not all of the UFCs sell out now. And a lot of that has to do with, I know, the fact that they're trying to spread to different markets. So they're sort of testing the water sometimes with these pay-per-views to see how it's going to sell in this area and grasp just how much traction there is in that market. But, you know, for the most part, most of them are selling out. Most of them are, I mean, selling out like 20, 30,000 seat venues. I mean, that's unreal. Yeah.
That's interesting what he said at the end about the boxing commission not really not allowing them to fight. I mean, because there's so much speculation. Everybody thinks that they are going to fight in August.
All right, now he's saying that as a reason or as a result of weight classes.
Yeah,
what he was speculating, or what we're speculating on right now. That doesn't mean that he can't drop weight or he can't add weight or whatever he has to do. I mean,
well,
it is.
Ken Shamrock is significantly heavier than Royce Gracie. I mean, I never really thought of that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess they could maybe have a catch weight or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll find out.
I'm sure they got something up their sleeves, but it is interesting fodder for the internet should this thing make its way around.
When I first asked him, it sounded like, he knew the answer, but he didn't really want to tell me.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
He's playing coy a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Royce Gracie. All right, let's take a break here, and we'll come back. This is a CNO show on WJFK